Welcome to the channel, Legendary Legacy, Recap Daily, where you can enjoy the summaries of the best books and podcasts without spending a penny. Today, we will recap the book, The Catcher in the Rye novel by J.D.Salinger. The Catcher in the Rye is an American novel by J.D.Salinger that was partially published in serial form 1945 to 1946 before being novelized in 1951. Originally intended for adults, it is often read by adolescents for its themes of angst and alienation, and as a critique of superficiality in society. The novel also deals with complex issues of innocence, identity, belonging, loss, connection, sex, and depression. The main character, Holden Caulfield, has become an icon of teenage rebellion. Caulfield, nearly of age, gives his opinion on a wide variety of topics as he narrates his recent life events. The Catcher has been translated widely. About 1 million copies are sold each year, with total sales of more than 65 million books. The novel was included on Time's 2005 list of the 100 best English-language novels written since 1923, and it was named by Modern Library and its readers as one of the 100 best English-language novels of the 20th century. In 2003, it was listed at number 15 on the BBC's survey, The Big Red. The recap episodes are published on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and other podcast platforms. You can tell us more information about any book or podcast you would like us to have an audio recap about. Please leave your book info below in the video comments. New recap episodes are published daily. If you find this content useful, please support our channel by liking, commenting on the video, following, subscribing, and sharing this content with your friends and relatives so that we have more motivation to produce more audio recap episodes with the best and latest quality. Thank you for listening and have a nice day. The Catcher in the Rye Summary. The Catcher in the Rye is set around the 1950s and is narrated by a young man named Holden Caulfield. Holden is not specific about his location while he's telling the story, but he makes it clear that he is undergoing treatment in a mental hospital or sanatorium. The events he narrates take place in the few days between the end of the fall school term and Christmas, when Holden is 16 years old. Holden's story begins on the Saturday following the end of classes at the Pensy Prep School in Hagerstown, Pennsylvania. Pensy is Holden's fourth school. He has already failed out of 3 others. At Pensy, he has failed 4 out of 5 of his classes and has received notice that he is being expelled, but he is not scheduled to return home to Manhattan until Wednesday. He visits his elderly history teacher, Spencer, to say goodbye, but when Spencer tries to reprimand him for his poor academic performance, Holden becomes annoyed. Back in the dormitory, Holden is further irritated by his unhygienic neighbor, Ackley, and by his own roommate, Stradlater. Stradlater spends the evening on a date with Jane Gallagher, a girl whom Holden used to date and whom he still admires. During the course of the evening, Holden grows increasingly nervous about Stradlater's taking Jane out, and when Stradlater returns, Holden questions him insistently about whether he tried to have sex with her. Stradlater teases Holden, who flies into a rage and attacks Stradlater. Stradlater pins Holden down and bloodies his nose. Holden decides that he's had enough of Pensy and will go to Manhattan 3 days early, stay in a hotel, and not tell his parents that he is back. On the train to New York, Holden meets the mother of one of his fellow Pensy students. Though he thinks this student is a complete bastard, he tells the woman made-up stories about how shy her son is and how well respected he is at school. When he arrives at Penn Station, he goes into a phone booth and considers calling several people, but for various reasons he decides against it. He gets in a cab and asks the cab driver where the ducks in Central Park go when the lagoon freezes, but his question annoys the driver. Holden has the cab driver take him to the Edmont Hotel, where he checks himself in. From his room at the Edmont, Holden can see into the rooms of some of the guests in the opposite wing. He observes a man putting on silk stockings, high heels, a bra, a corset, and an evening gown. He also sees a man and a woman in another room taking turns spitting mouthfuls of their drinks into each other's faces and laughing hysterically. He interprets the couple's behavior as a form of sexual play and is both upset and aroused by it. After smoking a couple of cigarettes, he calls Faith Cavendish, a woman he has never met but whose number he got from an acquaintance at Princeton. Holden thinks he remembers hearing that she used to be a stripper, and he believes he can persuade her to have sex with him. He calls her, and though she is at first annoyed to be called at such a late hour by a complete stranger, she eventually suggests that they meet the next day. Holden doesn't want to wait that long and winds up hanging up without arranging a meeting. Holden goes downstairs to the lavender room and sits at a table, but the waiter realizes he's a minor and refuses to serve him. He flirts with 3 women in their 30s, who seem like they're from out of town and are mostly interested in catching a glimpse of a celebrity. Nevertheless, Holden dances with them and feels that he is half in love with the blonde one after seeing how well she dances. After making some wisecracks about his age, they leave, letting him pay their entire tab. As Holden goes out to the lobby, he starts to think about Jane Gallagher and, in a flashback, recounts how he got to know her. They met while spending a summer vacation in Maine, played golf and checkers, and held hands at the movies. One afternoon, during a game of checkers, her stepfather came onto the porch where they were playing, and when he left Jane began to cry. Holden had moved to sit beside her and kissed her all over her face, but she wouldn't let him kiss her on the mouth. That was the closest they came to necking. Holden leaves the Edmont and takes a cab to Ernie's Jazz Club in Greenwich Village. Again, he asks the cab driver where the ducks in Central Park go in the winter, and this cabbie is even more irritable than the first one. Holden sits alone at a table in Ernie's and observes the other patrons with distaste. He runs into Lillian Simmons, one of his older brother's former girlfriends, who invites him to sit with her and her date. Holden says he has to meet someone, leaves, and walks back to the Edmont. Maurice, the elevator operator at the Edmont, offers to send a prostitute to Holden's room for $5, and Holden agrees. A young woman, identifying herself as Sunny, arrives at his door. She pulls off her dress, but Holden starts to feel peculiar and tries to make conversation with her. He claims that he recently underwent a spinal operation and isn't sufficiently recovered to have sex with her, but he offers to pay her anyway. She sits on his lap and talks dirty to him, but he insists on paying her $5 and showing her the door. Sunny returns with Maurice, who demands another $5 from Holden. When Holden refuses to pay, Maurice punches him in the stomach and leaves him on the floor, while Sunny takes $5 from his wallet. Holden goes to bed. He wakes up at 10 o'clock on Sunday and calls Sally Hayes, an attractive girl whom he has dated in the past. They arrange to meet for a matinee showing of a Broadway play. He eats breakfast at a sandwich bar, where he converses with 2 nuns about Romeo and Juliet. He gives the nuns $10. He tries to telephone Jane Gallagher, but her mother answers the phone, and he hangs up. He takes a cab to Central Park to look for his younger sister, Phoebe, but she isn't there. He helps one of Phoebe's schoolmates tighten her skate, and the girl tells him that Phoebe might be in the Museum of Natural History. Though he knows that Phoebe's class wouldn't be at the museum on a Sunday, he goes there anyway, but when he gets there he decides not to go in and instead takes a cab to the Biltmore Hotel to meet Sally. Holden and Sally go to the play, and Holden is annoyed that Sally talks with a boy she knows from Andover afterward. At Sally's suggestion, they go to Radio City to ice skate. They both skate poorly and decide to get a table. Instead, Holden tries to explain to Sally why he is unhappy at school, and actually urges her to run away with him to Massachusetts or Vermont and live in a cabin. When she refuses, he calls her a pain in the ass and laughs at her when she reacts angrily. She refuses to listen to his apologies and leaves. Holden calls Jane again, but there is no answer. He calls Carl Luce, a young man who had been Holden's student advisor at the Houghton School and who is now a student at Columbia University. Luce arranges to meet him for a drink after dinner, and Holden goes to a movie at Radio City to kill time. Holden and Luce meet at the Wicker Bar in the Seton Hotel. At Houghton, Luce had spoken frankly with some of the boys about sex, and Holden tries to draw him into a conversation about it once more. Luce grows irritated by Holden's juvenile remarks about gay men and about Luce's Chinese girlfriend, and he makes an excuse to leave early. Holden continues to drink scotch and listen to the pianist and singer. Quite drunk, Holden telephones Sally Hayes and babbles about their Christmas Eve plans. Then he goes to the lagoon in Central Park, where he used to watch the ducks as a child. It takes him a long time to find it, and by the time he does, he is freezing cold. He then decides to sneak into his own apartment building and wake his sister, Phoebe. He is forced to admit to Phoebe that he was kicked out of school, which makes her mad at him. When he tries to explain why he hates school, she accuses him of not liking anything. He tells her his fantasy of being the catcher in the rye, a person who catches little children as they are about to fall off of a cliff. Phoebe tells him that he has misremembered the poem that he took the image from. Robert Burns's poem says, "If a body meet a body, coming through the rye, not catch a body." Holden calls his former English teacher, Mr. Antolini, who tells Holden he can come to his apartment. Mr. Antolini asks Holden about his expulsion and tries to counsel him about his future. Holden can't hide his sleepiness, and Mr. Antolini puts him to bed on the couch. Holden awakens to find Mr. Antolini stroking his forehead. Thinking that Mr. Antolini is making a sexual overture, Holden hastily excuses himself and leaves, sleeping for a few hours on a bench at Grand Central Station. Holden goes to Phoebe's school and sends her a note saying that he is leaving home for good and that she should meet him at lunchtime at the museum. When Phoebe arrives, she is carrying a suitcase full of clothes, and she asks Holden to take her with him. He refuses angrily, and she cries and then refuses to speak to him. Knowing she will follow him, he walks to the zoo, and then takes her across the park to a carousel. He buys her a ticket and watches her ride it. It starts to rain heavily, but Holden is so happy watching his sister ride the carousel that he is close to tears. Holden ends his narrative here, telling the reader that he is not going to tell the story of how he went home and got sick. He plans to go to a new school in the fall and is cautiously optimistic about his future. The Catcher in the Rye analysis. The Catcher in the Rye is the story of Holden attempting to connect with other people and failing to do so, which causes him to dread maturity and cling to his idealized view of childhood. Most of the book recounts Holden's quest for connection, following him through dozens of encounters large and small, with cab drivers, nuns, tourists, pimps, former classmates, and many others. Because he has little sense of his effect on others and refuses to conform to societal norms, he fails in every attempt, and adopts a self-protective veneer of disgust with the world. He is quick to dismiss both individuals and the adult world in general as phony. But his encounters with others don't generally fall apart because he rejects or pushes away the other person. Instead, they fall apart because he behaves immaturely, indulging in outlandish or obnoxious behavior or making inappropriate choices, until other people become bemused or angry with him. Ultimately, his refusal to grow up and enter the adult world is doomed to failure, which results in his complete breakdown. The novel is told through the framing device of Holden's convalescence in what seems to be either a sanatorium or mental hospital, which creates suspense as to how he wound up there. After a brief present-tense introduction, he switches to past-tense flashback, beginning with his final days at Pensy Prep. The incident that incites the major events of the novel occurs when Stradlater goes out with Jane Gallagher and refuses to say whether he had sex with her. The idea that Stradlater and Jane might have had sex is more than Holden can take. He has felt affection for Jane for a long time, so Stradlater's date with her sparks envy. Holden also feels upset that his predatory roommate may have corrupted an important part of his past. Holden believes he knows both Jane and Stadlater extremely well, and the idea that Jane, who he sees as a paragon of virtue, might be attracted to Stadlater, who Holden sees as essentially corrupt, challenges his concept of the two characters. It suggests that he doesn't know anyone as well as he thinks, and his attempts at connection will inevitably fail. Unable to do anything about the situation, Holden decides to leave the school that night and take the train to New York City. Most of the episodes that take place after Holden departs from Pensy, and up until he visits his sister, Phoebe, at home, involve Holden attempting either to make sexual connections with others or to find someone to explain sex to him. Holden believes sex should be an act of intimacy, and he is ashamed of his own ability to be sexually attracted to women he doesn't feel a true connection with. Yet he propositions nearly every woman he encounters, most of whom are much older than he is. He invites his classmate's mother to get a drink, calls a woman he believes is a stripper, dances with older female tourists staying at his hotel, arranges to have a prostitute sent to his room, and tries to convince a coat check clerk to go out with him. Holden's quest for sexual knowledge culminates in his drink with Carl Luce, who Holden thinks can illuminate the relation between the physical and spiritual aspects of sexuality. However, Carl is presented as possibly confused about his own sexuality, undermining his authority on heterosexual relationships. He becomes uncomfortable when Holden asks him about the role of intimacy in sex, suggesting Holden is not as alone in his confusion as he believes. The climax of the story comes when Holden visits Phoebe, who becomes angry that Holden has been expelled from another school and confronts him about why he doesn't like anything. Holden says he likes his brother, Allie, but Phoebe points out that Allie is dead. Holden recalls a harrowing episode from an earlier prep school where a boy named James Castle, who was being bullied, leapt out of a window to his death. Holden identifies with James Castle, who had borrowed Holden's turtleneck and was wearing it when he died. This climax doesn't represent a turning point for Holden but rather illuminates for the reader just how deep Holden's need is to protect the Castle of his own childhood from the depredations of the adult world. He explains to Phoebe his fantasy of being the catcher in the rye, a figure who catches children who are about to plunge off an imaginary cliff to their deaths, or to adulthood. Phoebe corrects his misunderstanding of the words of the poem, calling his entire belief system into question and implying Holden is wrong about both childhood and adulthood. The falling action of the story depicts Holden continuing his attempt to delay adulthood until he can't run any further. He goes to see Mr. Antolini, an adult who showed bravery and compassion after James Castle's death. Mr. Antolini describes the misanthropic and maladjusted future Holden seems to be headed toward, furthering the impression that Holden is now in a limbo between his unrealistically idealized childhood and the unpleasant reality of adulthood. Incapable of accepting physical affection and terrified of the possibility that Mr. Antolini may be homosexual and a pedophile, Holden flees. He decides to run away from his life and his family for good, but his plan collapses when Phoebe insists on coming with him. At the end of his story, Holden calmly watches Phoebe riding a carousel, secure for the moment in her childhood innocence and not menaced by adulthood or the future. The novel ends in the present tense, with Holden offering the hope that his experience was actually transformational and he may apply himself at his next school. However, his voice is so similar to the rest of the novel, we may question whether he has actually matured and gained insight into himself and others. I hope you found my The Catcher in the Rye novel by J.D.Salinger recap summary helpful to your experience. The recap episodes are published on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and other podcast platforms. You can tell us more information about any book or podcast you would like us to have an audio recap about. Please leave your book info below in the video comments. New recap episodes are published daily. If you find this content useful, please support our channel by liking, commenting on the video, following, subscribing, and sharing this content with your friends and relatives so that we have more motivation to produce more audio recap episodes with the best and latest quality. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.